So, right now, no more Showtime.
Yeah, it's a big change. First time in 37 years.
How crazy is that?
It's hard to believe, but it sort of speaks to what's going on in the media industry. And not just sports media, but media overall. But obviously it affects sports as well. And it's interesting. For guys like you, it's really interesting because we're going from a point where a few years ago, more than a few, but there were 3 or 4 main networks. There was ESPN. Then streamers came in. Now all of a sudden, you don't need a network. You don't need a platform. There are some of the biggest names in sports media aren't attached to traditional media outlets, and so it's exciting. It's a free-for-all. I think the next few years are really going to do a lot for reshaping on how we'll consume sports for the next 30, 40 years.
Are you going to be involved in boxing moving forward?
It's a good question. Look, once you sort of get hooked and you get it in your blood, it's hard to get it out. Yeah. Like, it's sort of once you've been in that big fight atmosphere in Vegas for a big title fight, it's an adrenaline rush that you don't want to leave. There's just something about boxing that's different from all the other sports. So, look, for now, I'm helping out PBC getting started with the Amazon Prime deal. Obviously, they've got the March 30th event. And from there, look, I want to help them get started. It's a big transition because in boxing, HBO and Showtime have sort of carried a lot of the weight for the last 40 plus years. And now you take those away. Everything's got to be built from scratch, not just the TV production, but the marketing, the social media, everything around it. So I'm helping them get started. And looking around. But whatever I do, I'm definitely going to keep at least one foot within the sport of boxing.
For sure. You've been part of some of the biggest fights here in Vegas. How does the energy of those fights compare to what's going to happen this week at the Super Bowl?
It's a different energy. I would call it a little bit more raw. The energy is a little bit more raw and chaotic. Look, the great thing about the NFL, it's a machine. In every single way. When it comes to the game production, when it comes to the PR, when it looks like Radio Row, when you're looking at Super Bowl week, it is, you know exactly what it's going to be. You know how it's going to work. It's going to be of everyone. Part of the draw with boxing is that it is chaotic and it is unpredictable and it's a little bit of the Wild Wild West. And you never know what exactly is going to happen on fight night. So it's a perfect sport for the Vegas environment. That's why boxing's had such a long history. It's a little bit sort of edgy. It's a little bit unpredictable. It's sort of like, Vegas itself. Sometimes it goes great. Other times you can go off the rails.
What was your favorite fight to be a part of? Your favorite one?
Well, I'll eliminate the two obvious choices, which are Mayweather-Pacquiao, Mayweather-McGregor. Yeah. But a couple others that stand out would be probably Vladimir Klitschko Vladimir Klitschko and Anthony Joshua.
That was the co-promotion with HBO and Showtime.
Right, yeah. HBO. So we were out there. It's 90,000 people in Wembley Stadium. I remember going with Brandon Marshall at the time, who was on Inside the NFL with us. And he said, look, I played here in Wembley Stadium with the Chicago Bears, and it wasn't half as loud as it was for Joshua Klitschko. And fantastic fight, just one of those old school throwback heavyweight fights. I would say another one stands out is Mayweather-Canelo. And not, the fight was pretty one-sided. It was, real dominant performance from Floyd. But what stood out from that was the press tour. We did an old-time press tour on that. 11 cities in 9 days. All the way from New York City, Chicago, D.C., down to Houston, through Texas, through Vegas and L.A. You learn a lot about the people you're with when you're traveling for 9 straight days, 11 cities with them, like side by side.
And how was on something like that, Floyd's entourage, and seeing them on a day-to-day basis, and not necessarily inner stories, but how was How was that experience on a tour like that?
It's a once in a lifetime experience. I mean, look, you're flying private. There was a Canelo private jet, there was a Floyd private jet. And I would alternate back and forth because I didn't want to look like I was on one side or the other. I didn't want either fighter. So you got a good sense of both sides, entourages, and a lot of the gamesmanship like that went on. Little things, not just what was said at press conference, but gamesmanship on making the other guy wait, or being intentionally late, or trying to delay his food at the meal, or because people would forget, like, we'd be at the press conferences, and this was the same thing for Mayweather, McGregor too. We'd be at the press conferences and everything would happen there. But then you're flying out, even if you're on separate jets, you're flying out of the same airport. So then you're in a small, like, little private airport waiting room, and it's all the fight entourages. Now that, with Floyd and Canelo, nothing was going to happen. They're professionals. With Mayweather and McGregor, like, there were some tense moments.
Or Floyd put the palm. When Conor put the palm on his head.
Right, yeah. And then you're sitting there, and then you got to see each other and sort of lingering in a really small waiting room at the private jet. It was, those were tense moments.
What was on the Floyd and Mayweather tour? What was your favorite stop?
It probably had to be Toronto.
I'm from Toronto. So I was at that one. That's
and
why
then you saw it was like
it was crazy.
Sea of people.
Crazy.
And then just to make it, just to top it all off, Drake rolls up. Yeah. And I forget who was late. One of the two guys, probably Floyd.
It was probably Floyd.
Because
Drake had to come out and hype the crowd up because.
So we had a mini negotiation backstage, and he said, "Yeah, I'll go out," and he wasn't going to perform, obviously, but I'll go out and help stall the crowd, but I need 4 tickets. So it was. Well, we ended at 4. It started with different. I said, "How about 2?" We ended with 4. So it was. I think for his 5 or 10 minutes he spent out on stage, it was, I think, a pretty good investment on his part.
I think it was. The crowd loved it.
Yeah.
Toronto loves Drake. So you saw the crowd in Toronto. In Toronto, historically, UFC town, not necessarily boxing, but they love Floyd. They did love Floyd. Why? I know you guys. The one fight was with Stevenson versus Badu Jack, right?
Right. Yeah.
That was one time at the Air Canada Center at the time. Did you guys ever consider giving Toronto a big fight?
It's one of the missed opportunities because we went to Montreal, we went to Quebec City a couple of times. It just never came together, and I forget why for Toronto, but I think that's a glaring omission. It's a great sports town. They've got a great history in combat sports. I think what we needed, or what the promoter needed more than anything, is somebody who had the built-in fan base in Toronto. Yeah. So if there ever is a boxer that comes out of Toronto, like he's got it made. Like that's a town that's just ready-made to have another huge sports star out of it.
It's a fight town.
Yeah.
They love their fighting. Boots Ennis. I don't know the contract details or anything, but what's out there was he had an exclusive deal with Showtime and not with PBC. I don't know if that's true or not. If it is true, how does that work with no Showtime?
He's that's basically accurate. His relationship was with Showtime and not PBC, coming up through Showbox all the way through. But the reality, it didn't really matter, because he was fighting PBC opponents and obviously there. Now going forward, he certainly, he's able to look around, but in the short run, PBC has a lot of talent at 147 and at 154. So I think the best opportunities for him to get those big fights, whether it's the Spence or the Crawfords or Stanionis or Thurman or any of those guys, or going up to 54 and fighting, Lubin, or, if Charlo straightens his situation out, or other guys at 54. But look, what everybody sees nowadays is the same thing I had hoped when we started back with him 6-7 years ago. And that's, the kid is really, really talented, and, he's put it all together. Really confident outside the ring, has figured out sort of how to relate to the public and how to do media. And, in the ring, look, you can get in trouble making comparisons like this. But the last couple fights, he's shown some elements of like a Roy Jones. He just obviously different weight classes, but his athleticism, his quickness, his power, he puts it all together in a really entertaining way.
He's amazing. He's very good. So you said you have 1 foot. You're gonna have 1 foot in boxing.
At least one.
At
Maybe
least 1
two.
foot, maybe two,
Right.
So March 30th on Amazon. You're helping out.
Yes.
Should we expect more than a help out soon, or are you going to be promoting it somewhat?
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I'm wandering around here, Radio Row, and we'll probably be back tomorrow with Tim Zhu, and he's one of the guys that I can't wait for people to sort of discover more here in the U.S. Because they had a little back and forth. He's the closest thing to a throwback Mexican fighter as you'll see, who's not from Mexico. At times he'll take 3 punches to give 1. He's just rock solid chin, great power puncher, really entertaining kid. I think the sky's the limit for him.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to March 30th and looking forward to seeing you hopefully back doing your thing.
Yeah, that's it won't be long. It won't be long. Good to see you again.
Thank you.